Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're really getting into a fascinating book all about the power of your mind.
Yeah, this one is called Limitless Mind.
And it's by Jo Boaler.
Who's a professor at Stanford.
That's right. And she's kind of turning everything we thought we knew about learning and intelligence on its head.
Yeah, she uses all this cutting-edge science and research to show us that we can actually achieve way more than we think we can.
Okay, so what exactly are we diving into today with Limitless Mind? What can our listeners expect to learn?
So imagine I don't know, imagine a world where you actually look forward to making mistakes.
Okay, that's a tough one, but go on.
Because you know that they're not actually failures, but they're like stepping stones to understanding something even better than you did before.
I like that.
Right. And where your brain, it's not this like fixed thing. It's actually like a muscle that you can train and strengthen and grow.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. And so the more you challenge it, the stronger it gets. And then, the power of believing in yourself.
That becomes the key to unlocking all of this incredible potential that we all have inside of us.
I love that.
Yeah, and that's the kind of world that Jo Boaler is inviting us into in Limitless Mind.
So it's not just theory, right? There are actual, like, real life examples
Absolutely.
of people doing these extraordinary things.
Yes, it's full of stories of people who have achieved incredible things just by tapping into this power of the mind. But before we get to those stories, I think we need to talk about one of the core concepts that underpins everything in this book,
Mm-hmm.
and that is neuroplasticity.
Okay, neuroplasticity. It sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But it's actually much simpler than it sounds.
Okay.
It's basically the brain's ability to change and rewire itself throughout our lives.
So it's like instead of our brains being this fixed thing, they're actually constantly evolving.
Exactly.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's like this incredible network of pathways
Yeah.
that's always adapting to new experiences and new information.
Right.
So it's not like game over when you're born with a set amount of brain power, right?
Right.
It's actually like the potential is limitless,
Right.
and your brain can actually grow and develop as you learn new things and you take on new challenges.
Okay, so how do we know for sure that neuroplasticity is a real thing?
Well, Bowler talks about this really fascinating study of London black cab drivers.
Oh, yeah.
Had you heard of this?
I think so.
So to get their license, they have to memorize thousands of streets and landmarks and all these crazy routes.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't even remember where I parked my car half the time.
Exactly. And so researchers actually studied the brains of these cab drivers. And they found that after all of this intense training, the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for spatial reasoning and memory, it had actually grown significantly in these drivers.
Whoa.
So basically their brains physically changed based on what they were learning.
So does that mean our brains are like changing all the time based on what we're doing and what we're learning?
Yes, absolutely. Every time you learn something new, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're creating new connections, new pathways. And the more you challenge yourself, the more you're basically building a stronger, more flexible brain. Like it's a mental gym.
I like that. A mental gym. I'm already feeling smarter. So, I guess I can see why the book is called Limitless Mind. Because, if our brains can keep growing and changing like that, the possibilities really are kind of limitless.
Exactly.
So how can we tap into this incredible power?
Well, this is where things get really, really interesting. Because if our brains are that adaptable, then we actually have way more control over our own learning and potential than we probably even realize.
So where do we start?
Oh, are you ready to have some of your long-held beliefs challenged?
Always.
Okay. Let's talk about mistakes.
Oh,
You know that thing that we're always told to avoid at all costs?
pretty much, yeah.
Well, Bowler completely throws that idea out the window. She actually argues that mistakes are not only inevitable, but they're essential for growth.
Wait, so making a mistake is actually a good thing?
Think about it this way. When you make a genuine mistake, your brain's sending you a signal. It's like, hey, pay attention. There's something here we need to figure out.
Oh, interesting.
So that struggle, that aha moment when you finally understand something, that's where the real learning is actually happening.
Like a light bulb moment.
Exactly. It's like a mental workout, right? And the more you embrace that challenge, the stronger your brain gets.
Okay, so that's kind of a radical idea, isn't it? Because it goes against everything we've been taught about, like perfectionism and getting things right the first time.
It really does.
Yeah.
But it's so important to understand the science behind it, you know? And Bowler actually shares some incredible stories in the book about how embracing mistakes has transformed people's
Oh,
lives.
I can't wait to hear about those.
Yeah, we'll get into those in a bit. But first, I think we need to talk about another really important concept, and that is
Mindset.
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 Okay, I think I've heard that term before, but I'm not sure I totally understand it. Yeah. Well, it's basically all about how our beliefs about our own intelligence can really shape our learning experiences. A lot of this comes from the work of Carol Dweck, who's a psychologist, and she's done some really groundbreaking research on something called growth versus fixed mindsets.
Okay, so what's the difference between the two?
So imagine two people, right, and they're both facing this really difficult math problem. The person with a fixed mindset, they might say, oh, I'm just not a math person. I'm never going to get this. They believe their intelligence is just fixed. It's set in stone. But someone with a growth mindset, they might say, this is tough, but I'm going to keep trying until I figure it out because I know I can learn and I can improve. So they see challenges as opportunities to grow and develop their abilities.
So it's all about how we view our own potential, right? Whether we believe we're capable of growth or whether we think we're stuck where we are.
Exactly. And the amazing thing is that Dweck's research actually shows that our mindsets can actually influence how our brains respond to challenges. So a growth mindset, it actually creates a more adaptable and resilient brain.
Yeah.
One that's primed for learning and for problem solving.
So our beliefs can literally change the physical structure of our brains.
Yeah,
Wow, that's incredible.
it's really powerful stuff.
So how does all of this tie back to making mistakes?
Well, when we have a growth mindset, we actually see mistakes not as failures, but as really valuable feedback. They become opportunities to learn and improve. They kind of push us forward.
I see. I see. Okay, so it's all starting to connect now. Neuroplasticity shows us our brains can change. A growth mindset helps us embrace those changes, and mistakes actually become really valuable stepping stones in that whole process.
Exactly. You're getting it.
Mhm.
And Boaler has all these great stories in Limitless Mind about how people have applied these concepts to their own lives and achieved some pretty amazing things.
Okay, bring on the inspiration. I'm ready for some stories.
Well, there's this one story about a teacher named Suzanne. And she decided to introduce this idea of positive mistakes to her students.
Positive mistakes.
Yeah. They were a little skeptical at first because, who isn't taught to think that mistakes are bad, right?
Yeah.
But Suzanne, she helped them understand that there's actually a difference between just careless errors and the kind of mistakes that come from really putting in effort and trying to push your understanding further. Those mistakes that are actually productive.
So it's like reframing the whole idea of making mistakes.
Totally.
Yeah. Instead of being something to fear, it becomes like a natural part of the learning process.
Exactly. And Suzanne's students actually got so empowered by this idea that they even challenged their principal one time when he was trying to fake a mistake. They're like, no, 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 a real mistake comes from really pushing yourself to understand something new.
I love that.
They weren't just memorizing facts. They were actually thinking critically about, what does it really mean to learn?
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So that's a growth mindset in action.
Absolutely. It's not just about memorizing things. It's
Yeah.
about developing that deeper understanding of how learning works and embracing the challenge. Speaking of challenge, Boaler actually uses this really cool visual metaphor to illustrate this idea of embracing the struggle. She calls it the learning pit.
The learning pit.
The learning pit.
Okay, paint me a picture.
Oh, imagine like a pit, right? And you have to struggle and climb to reach that understanding at the top.
Okay.
And it's not always easy or comfortable.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might even fall in and have to start again.
All right.
But each time you climb out, you come out stronger, you come out more knowledgeable.
I like that. So it's like the real learning happens when we're willing to get a little messy, to kind of struggle and figure things out, not just taking the easy route.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's this one story Boaler tells about a student named Ellie. And Ellie really struggled with math in the beginning, but her determination to actually understand, even with those struggles, it led to some amazing progress. She just didn't see the struggle as a sign of failure. She saw it as a necessary part of the journey.
And I think a lot of us can relate to that, right? Like we hit a wall and we're like, I'm just not good at this.
Yeah. But it's really about embracing that process. It's not about just focusing on the end result. It's about enjoying the journey, even when it's tough. And when we shift our mindset in that way, it opens up all these possibilities for learning and growth.
Wow, this is really making me rethink how I approach challenges in general.
That's great to hear. And, we've only just scratched the surface of what Boaler explores in Limitless Mind. There's so much more. Like, have you ever heard the idea that some people are just math people?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like they're just born good at math and others are doomed to struggle.
Yeah, I used to think I wasn't a math person myself, honestly.
Well, Boulder completely debunks that myth. She says that anyone can learn and excel in math with the right mindset and the right approach.
So it's not about some, like, math gene. It's more about the way we've been taught and the beliefs we've developed about ourselves.
Exactly. And she actually argues that the way math is often taught in schools can create a lot of math anxiety and
Yeah.
pure learning,
Yeah.
focusing on speed and memorization and all that.
Oh, yeah, totally. I remember those time tests in school, and it was like my brain would just freeze up. It was so stressful.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she's talking about. That emphasis on speed, it actually prevents you from thinking deeply and really understanding the concepts.
So it's not about being fast, it's about being thoughtful and thorough.
Exactly.
Yep.
And she actually has examples of these, like world-renowned mathematicians who describe themselves as slow thinkers. Laurent Schwartz, who won a Fields Medal that's like the Nobel Prize of Math, he actually wrote about his struggles with math in his autobiography.
Wow, that's so interesting. So even these brilliant mathematical minds, they don't necessarily fit that stereotype of like the super fast calculator.
Not at all. In fact, some of the most amazing discoveries and innovations have come from people who took their time to think deeply, to question assumptions, and to really explore ideas from all different angles.
This is making me completely rethink my own approach to like everything, not just math, but just learning and problem solving in general.
That's great to hear. And that's really what Boulder's doing with this book. She's encouraging us to slow down, to embrace the process, and to realize that true understanding, it takes time and patience.
Okay, this is all pretty mind-blowing, and I know we've got a lot more to uncover. Where do we go from here?
Well, we're just getting started. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some even more fascinating insights from Limitless Mind, including things like the power of collaboration, the importance of depth over speed, and how to create those unlocking moments that can really propel us toward our full potential.
Welcome back. We are in the middle of a deep dive into Jo Boaler's Limitless Mind.
And last time we were talking all about the amazing idea of neuroplasticity.
Right, that our brains can actually change and rewire themselves.
Totally. Like it blows the whole fixed mindset thing right out of the water.
It really does. And we were talking about how embracing mistakes and having a growth mindset can help us unlock all of this potential that we have.
It's funny because we often think of struggle as like a sign of weakness, but it actually turns out that those aha moments, when we finally grasp something difficult, that's when our brains are really firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, it's like fireworks going off in there.
Exactly. And Bowler even calls them desirable difficulties.
Desirable difficulty.
I know, right? But
Wow.
she backs up with a lot of really cool research. Like she talks about this study on interleaving, which is basically like mixing up different types of problems or subjects instead of just practicing one thing over and over again.
So, like, instead of just doing addition problems all in a row, you would mix it up with, like, subtraction and maybe even some multiplication.
Exactly. It might seem a little counterintuitive, but studies have shown that it actually helps us learn more deeply and remember things better in the long run.
Interesting.
Yeah, it forces your brain to work harder and make more connections, which ultimately strengthens your understanding.
So it's like cross-training for your mind.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And it all ties back to neuroplasticity, right?
Right.
The more you challenge your brain, the more you push yourself out of that comfort zone, the more you're building those neural pathways and
Yeah.
strengthening those mental muscles.
So it's not about avoiding mistakes. It's about intentionally seeking out those challenges that will help us grow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's another really powerful tool that Bowler talks about that can help us really maximize our learning, and that is mental imagery and visualization.
Oh, visualization, yeah. Isn't that something athletes use?
It is.
Cool.
And it turns out it's not just some new agey concept. There's actual science behind it. Like there was this study where people simply imagine themselves exercising and they actually increase their physical strength.
Wait, are you serious? So just thinking about lifting weights can make you stronger?
It sounds crazy, but it's true. When you vividly imagine yourself doing something, your brain actually fires the same neural pathways as if you were physically doing it. It's like a mental rehearsal.
Oh, wow. So we can apply that to learning new things, not just physical activities.
Absolutely. Studies have shown that it can be super effective for like playing a musical instrument or giving a presentation or even learning a new language.
Okay, so how do we actually use visualization to help us learn better?
It's all about creating a really vivid mental picture and engaging all of your senses.
Okay.
Like if you're learning to play the piano, imagine yourself actually sitting at the piano, feeling the keys under your fingers, hearing the music as you play each note.
So it's not just seeing it in your mind, it's
Yeah.
about really feeling it and hearing it and experiencing it as fully as possible.
Exactly. The more senses you can engage, the more powerful the visualization becomes.
Oh, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to try that.
I encourage you to. It's a game changer.
Okay, so we've got neuroplasticity, we've got growth mindset, we've got visualization. Is there anything else we need to add to our limitless mind toolkit?
You know, Bowler actually brings up another one that might surprise you, and that is gratitude.
Gratitude. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So gratitude, it's more than just a nice feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's actually a really powerful state of mind that can have a huge impact on our well-being, our relationships, and even our learning.
Okay.
She talks about the work of Sean Aker, who's this like happiness expert, and he's done all this research on the benefits of gratitude.
Okay.
And his studies have shown that when you practice gratitude regularly, it can actually make you happier, reduce your stress, you sleep better, and you're even more productive.
Wow. So how does that work exactly?
Well, when we focus on the things we're grateful for, we're basically training our brains to pay more attention to the positive things in our lives, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And this shift in focus can have a ripple effect on our thoughts and our feelings and our behaviors.
So it's like we're training our brains to look for the good stuff instead of dwelling on the negative?
Exactly. And that positive mindset creates a much more fertile ground for learning and growth.
Mm-hmm.
When we're feeling grateful, we're more open to new experiences, we're more resilient when things get tough, and we're more likely to keep going when we face challenges.
It's like gratitude gives us this boost of energy and motivation to keep learning and keep growing.
Exactly. And Bowler actually shares this really incredible story about Henry Fraser, who's this young man who became paralyzed from the neck down after a diving accident.
Oh, wow. That's just awful.
It is. But Henry's story is really about the power of resilience and how gratitude can transform your whole perspective. Instead of giving in to despair, Henry actually chose to focus on what he was grateful for: the love of his family and friends, his ability to think and create, and just the simple joys of each day.
So even in the face of this unimaginable tragedy, he found a way to choose gratitude.
He did, and that choice completely changed his life. He actually learned to paint by holding a brush in his mouth. He became a motivational speaker, and he even wrote a best-selling book about finding joy in everyday moments.
That's incredible.
It is, and it's such a powerful reminder that we always have a choice in how we respond to the challenges that life throws at us. We can choose gratitude even when it's really hard.
That's too powerful.
And that choice can make all the difference in our ability to learn, grow, and thrive no matter what.
So how do we actually cultivate more gratitude in our own lives? Like, are there specific things we can do?
There are. A really simple one is to start a gratitude journal. Just take a few minutes each day to write down 3 things you're grateful for.
It can be anything, right? Big
Yeah.
or small.
Anything. It could be a beautiful sunset, a delicious meal, a kind word from a friend. The key is to really savor those moments and let yourself feel the positive emotions that come with them.
It's like taking a pause to actually appreciate the good things instead of just rushing through life on autopilot.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And another really powerful practice is to actually express your gratitude to the people in your life.
Yeah, just a simple thank you can go a long way.
It really can. It strengthens relationships and it boosts happiness both for you and the person you're thanking.
And sometimes we forget to do that, right?
We do. We get so busy and caught up in our own lives that we forget to express our appreciation to the people who matter most.
So true.
And, you know, don't forget about gratitude for your own physical and mental health.
Yeah.
Bowler really emphasizes the importance of taking care of our bodies and minds as part of cultivating a limitless mindset.
So it's all connected, our physical health, our mental well-being, our ability to learn and grow.
Exactly. She encourages readers to prioritize sleep, exercise, healthy eating,
Yeah, all the good stuff.
all the things, yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're not just good habits, they're essential for optimal brain function.
Yeah, I know. When I'm taking care of myself physically, I definitely feel more mentally sharp and focused.
Me too. And don't forget about mindfulness and meditation. Those practices can help us reduce stress, increase our focus, and even change the actual structure of our brains.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, they can increase gray matter in areas that are associated with attention and emotional regulation.
That's incredible. It's like giving your brain a spa treatment.
I like that. So we've got neuroplasticity, growth mindset, embracing mistakes, visualization, gratitude, taking care of ourselves physically and mentally. What else do we need to cultivate a limitless mind.
It sounds like we've got a pretty full toolkit already.
We do. But Boaler also talks about the importance of finding meaning and purpose in our lives.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually go about finding our purpose?
It's a very personal journey, but there are definitely things we can do to guide our exploration. Boaler suggests things like reflecting on our values, our interests, the things that bring us joy. What are we passionate about? What kind of impact do we want to make on the world?
Those are some big questions.
They are, but they're worth pondering. And sometimes the answers aren't obvious right away. So she encourages us to be open to exploring different possibilities, to experiment, to try new things, and to not be afraid to, kind of stumble along the way.
Yeah, it's like applying that growth mindset, not just to our learning, but to our whole approach to life.
Exactly. And sometimes finding our purpose isn't about having this big epiphany or anything like that. It's about paying attention to the small things, the things that light us up and make us feel alive.
Yeah, it makes you think about how you're spending your time and energy, right? Like, are you pursuing things that really matter to you?
Totally. And Bowler actually shares a story about a teacher named Beth who was diagnosed with a pretty serious illness,
Oh, wow.
and it was really debilitating. But her story is a really powerful example of how finding meaning and purpose can help us overcome adversity. She was facing all these challenges, but she found strength in her work as a teacher and her commitment to helping her students.
So even in the midst of all of that suffering, she found a way to connect with something bigger than herself.
Exactly. And it gave her life meaning. And it's a reminder that we all have the capacity to find purpose, even in the most difficult circumstances.
It's so inspiring. It's like Bowler is giving us this roadmap for not just learning more, but for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life as well.
That's
Yeah.
a beautiful way to put it. And, we're just scratching the surface of what she shares in Limitless Mind. In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to explore even more fascinating ideas from the book. Things like the power of collaboration, the importance of depth over speed, and how to create those unlocking moments that help us reach our full potential.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Limitless Mind. So in the last two parts, we talked about neuroplasticity, the growth mindset, and even gratitude. I feel like we've been given all these amazing tools to really unlock our learning potential.
We have, and there's one more really crucial piece of the puzzle that Bowler explores in this book, and that's the power of collaboration.
Collaboration. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like two heads are better than one.
Right, but it goes way deeper than that. Boulder actually highlights research showing that collaborative learning environments can lead to much deeper understanding, greater creativity, and even greater resilience.
Okay, so how does working together actually boost our learning power?
Well, think about it. When we collaborate, we're exposed to all these different perspectives, different ways of approaching a problem, different strategies for finding solutions. And that forces us to think more critically, more flexibly, which actually helps build stronger neural connections in our brains.
Oh, interesting. So it's like we're amplifying each other's learning by bouncing ideas off of one another.
Exactly. And Bowler talks about this really fascinating study that looked at collaborative problem-solving skills. And they found that girls consistently outperform boys in these tasks across every single country that they studied.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Why do you think that is?
Well, the researchers suggested that girls are often socialized to be more collaborative and less competitive, which could give them an edge in these types of tasks. And it kind of highlights how our traditional classroom settings, which often really emphasize individual achievement and competition, might not be tapping into the full potential of all learners.
Yeah, I can see that.
And there's another really interesting finding from the study. When students were collaborating, there was no significant difference in outcomes between advantaged and disadvantaged students.
That's really powerful. So collaboration can actually help level the playing field.
It can. And it's a testament to the power of working together, not just for individual growth, but for creating a more just and inclusive society as well.
So collaboration is obviously a key ingredient in unlocking a limitless mind. But how do we create those truly positive and productive collaborative environments?
Well, Bowler gives some really practical advice based on her research. She talks about opening minds, opening content, and embracing uncertainty.
Okay, I like those. What exactly does opening minds mean in this context?
Well, it's about creating a culture of respect where everyone feels safe to share their ideas, even if those ideas are different or challenge the status quo. It's about moving away from this idea that there's only one right answer and really embracing the diversity of thought.
So it's like fostering that growth mindset, but on a group level.
Exactly. When we believe that everyone has something valuable to contribute, we create a much more dynamic and engaging learning experience.
What about opening content? What does that involve?
It's about presenting information in a way that allows for multiple interpretations and solutions. So instead of just giving students a worksheet with a bunch of closed-ended problems, we can invite them to explore, to experiment, and to make connections in their own unique ways.
I see. So giving them more ownership over their learning.
Exactly. And Boaler suggests using things like open-ended questions, visuals, models, hands-on activities. All those things can help make learning more engaging and accessible.
Yeah, I can see how that would make it a much more collaborative and interactive experience. Like, instead of just passively absorbing information, they're actively constructing knowledge together.
Exactly. And that brings us to the third element, embracing uncertainty.
Uncertainty, isn't that what we're usually trying to avoid?
I know, right? We tend to think of knowledge as something fixed and certain. But Boaler argues that true learning involves embracing the unknown. It means being willing to ask questions, to make mistakes, and to constantly revise our understanding as we go along.
Yeah, that can be tough, though.
It can, especially in a culture that often equates being right with being intelligent. But creating a safe space for uncertainty is crucial for fostering true collaboration and creativity. Because when people feel comfortable being wrong, they're more likely to take risks, to share their ideas, and to really build on each other's thinking.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Bowler even tells this great story about Shane Feldman, who's a high school student who felt really isolated when he first started high school. He kind of felt like an outsider.
Ah,
But his guidance counselor actually suggested he join 5 different clubs, and it totally changed his experience.
really? How so?
He found that connecting with other people who shared his interests gave him a sense of belonging and purpose, and it also helped him develop his leadership skills and discover a passion for making a difference.
It's not just joining any clubs, then. It's about finding those communities where you feel connected and valued.
Absolutely. And Shane was actually so inspired by his experience that he started a movement called Count Me In to promote connection and belonging in high schools across the country.
Wow. So he took his own experience and turned it into something that's impacting thousands of students. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of how collaboration can not only enhance our own learning, but also create positive change in the world around us.
So we've talked about the power of collaboration, but there's another myth that Bowler addresses that I think a lot of people can relate to, and that's this idea that speed is a sign of intelligence, especially when it comes to math.
Oh yeah, I remember that from school.
Yep.
Like whoever finished the test first was the smartest.
Exactly. And Bowler says that's incredibly damaging because it creates all this unnecessary pressure and anxiety, and it can lead people to believe that they're not good at math simply because they don't process information as quickly. I remember those timed math tests. They were the worst. It felt like my brain would just freeze up.
And that's exactly the problem. That emphasis on speed can actually prevent deep thinking and understanding. When we're so focused on getting the answer quickly, we're not really taking the time to explore different approaches, to make connections, to really understand the underlying concepts.
So it's not about being fast, it's about being thorough.
Exactly. And Bowler shares examples of these amazing mathematicians who actually describe themselves as slow thinkers. Laurent Schwartz, who won the Fields Medal, which is like the Nobel Prize of Math, even wrote about his own struggles with math in his autobiography.
Wow. So even brilliant mathematical minds, they don't always fit that stereotype of like the super fast calculator.
Exactly. In fact, some of the most groundbreaking discoveries and innovations have come from people who took the time to really think deeply, to question assumptions, and to explore ideas from all different
That's
angles.
so refreshing to hear that.
It is. And Limitless Mind really gives us permission to slow down, to embrace the process, and to recognize that true understanding takes time and patience.
And it's not just about math, right? This applies to everything how we approach work, relationships, life.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our focus from quantity to quality, from rushing to get things done, to really savoring the journey and appreciating all the nuances along the way.
This has been such an insightful conversation. It's really made me think about my own beliefs about learning and intelligence, and it's given me so many tools to unlock my own potential.
Me too. And remember, this is just the beginning. Limitless Mind is packed with so many more inspiring stories, practical strategies, and thought-provoking insights. I really encourage everyone to check out the book.
Yeah, and we'll have links to all the resources mentioned in this deep dive in our show notes, so be sure to check those out. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the world of limitless learning. Remember, you have the power to shape your own brain and your own potential. What will you choose to learn today?
Keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop believing in the limitless power of your mind.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into Jo Boaler's Limitless Mind. Until next time, stay curious.